Hey, what's up everybody? This is Keagan here and welcome back to the channel, and I'm back with a brand new video for you guys. And welcome to another edition of Keagan's Movie Reviews. And today I'm actually going to be reviewing 3 movies this time around. And all 3 of these movies I'm going to be reviewing are movies I saw in theaters quite recently. Now, the first one I'm reviewing is one I actually saw in theaters a couple weeks ago, and I've been meaning to do a review of it in a separate video, but just never gotten around to it. And since I saw the other 2 movies that I'm going to be reviewing in this video recently, I figured why not review all 3 movies in one video. So, yeah, I don't really have too much else to say, so let's dive into the first movie I'm going to be reviewing first. So, let's get right into it. So the first movie I'm going to be talking about today is Dune, the new one, not the original from the 80s that David Lynch made, but the new one from Denis Villeneuve, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. I'm not sure if I pronounced it right, but I think I did. But yeah, this is from the same director of Blade Runner 2049, Arrival, Sicario, Enemy, and so on. And this movie is based on the book of the same name, which was written by Frank Herbert in the 60s. I've never read the source material that this movie is based on, but I probably will read it someday. And this movie was released on October 22nd, 2021, so this movie literally just came out 3 weeks ago. And I actually happened to see it. I happened to see it in theaters the day after it came out, so I saw it in theaters on its opening weekend. And not long after the movie came out, the plans for the sequel were just announced, and it will be coming out in 2023. So I'll probably check out the second one when it comes out. But let's dive into the storyline for this movie, and then I will give my thoughts on it, and then we will move on to the other 2 movies in this review. So let's dive into Dune. Now, the storyline for Dune, in a spoiler-free way, and in my way of describing it, it follows a young man by the name of Paul, who was played by Timothèe Chalamet. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. And Paul is the son of a noble family who is gifted. And he is traveling to the most dangerous planet in the universe, known as Dune, I believe is what the planet was called. He's on the planet to help secure the future for his family and for his people. And there is a precious, a really rare, precious thingy, I can't remember what it is, that's sacred to his kind. But then things start to go bad when some enemy forces try to start a war and start killing everybody and try to steal this thingy that's sacred to Paul and his kind's existence. So Paul's trying to fight off all the enemies and try to protect this thingy that I can't remember what it is. Well, it's been 3 weeks. I can't exactly remember everything that happened in it, but yeah, I'm sure you get what I'm trying to say. And that's basically the storyline of the movie in a nutshell, in a kind of a shitty way, my way of describing the movie. But yeah. Now, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought I had some fun seeing it in theaters. It was well acted, and the set designs were really well done, and had some really good CGI. And Timothèe Chalamet fit the role of the main character perfectly, and all the performances were really good. Had some good action sequences, and I believe this movie was supposed to come out last year, and then it got pushed back to this year. I believe it was supposed to come out last year, but I can't remember though. But I think it was originally supposed to come out last year, but I can't remember. But I've never read the book that this movie was based on, like I said before, but apparently this adaptation is more faithful to the book from what I've heard. And I know there was another adaptation that David Lynch made back in the 80s. I haven't seen that other version of Dune, but I heard mixed things about it, but maybe I'll check it out someday. But I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was a really good sci-fi movie, and I thought it was pretty good. And I will definitely see Dune Part 2 when that comes out in 2023. And I don't really have too much else to add, but I thought it was a pretty good movie. And I know I kind of did a crappy job on describing the story for the movie. Well, I can't exactly remember everything that happened in it, and I didn't really want to spoil it because I try to review movies in a spoiler-free way. But I really enjoyed it, and this is definitely one of Denis Villeneuve's best movies. I think I said his name right. I'm not sure though, but I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. But I don't really have too much else to add to this review, but I'm going to give Dune a 7.9 out of 10. So that's all I have to say about Dune, and now onto the other movies that I'm going to be reviewing in this video. The next movie I'm going to be reviewing is a movie I saw in theaters on Monday last week, and that next movie is The French Dispatch, which is the new Wes Anderson film. And I do like Wes Anderson. Wes Anderson's one of my favorite directors. This is the same director of movies like Fantastic Mr. Fox, The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, which I thought was a pretty underrated Wes Anderson movie. He also directed The Grand Budapest Hotel, which I know a lot of people regard that one to being his best movie, which, now I might get some shit for saying this, but I liked The Grand Budapest Hotel for what it was, but it definitely wasn't my favorite Wes Anderson movie. I honestly thought it was a little overrated, but I didn't hate it. I thought it was pretty good, but it wasn't my favorite Wes Anderson movie. And he also directed other movies like Isle of Dogs, which was actually his previous movie before this one, Rushmore, and The Royal Tenenbaums, and so on. And The French Dispatch was actually supposed to come out last October, but it got pushed back to this year because of, well, I don't think I really need to explain it. And this movie was also released on October 22nd, 2021. So this movie just came out 3 weeks ago. And I saw it in theaters on Monday last week. So let's dive into the storylines of The French Dispatch, and then I'll give my thoughts on it. So let's dive into The French Dispatch. So the storyline for The French Dispatch, it follows the fictional magazine company titled The French Dispatch, where they publish stories of different events that happened around the world. And the company is publishing one more magazine after the owner of the company, the owner was played by Bill Murray, after he dies of a heart attack. In his final will, he asks that the company publishes one more magazine before they discontinue making more magazines. And basically this movie tells the last 3 stories that the French Dispatch will ever produce before they shut down for good. And there are 3 stories in this movie. The first one being, you got Benicio del Toro play a prisoner convicted of murder who becomes an artist, and one of the prison guards, a female prison guard played by Leah Sado, I believe that's how you pronounce her name. You might know her from Blue is the Warmest Color, and recently in No Time to Die, which I did a review on in my last movie review. And she basically poses for the prisoner while he paints. And Adrian Brody plays as some sort of art dealer or whatever who's trying to help make the prisoner become famous or something like that. And the second story follows a college student played by Timothèe Chalamet, and he has a love affair with an older woman played by Frances McDormand, who is one of the journalists for the French Dispatch. And there's a conflict in the colleges between the male dorm and the female dorm, and Timothèe Chalamet's character is trying to stop the conflict from getting worse. And the third and final story follows Jeffrey Wright writing an article about a young boy who works with the police department as a detective, but then the young boy gets kidnapped by some mobsters, and it's basically a standoff between the police and the mobsters. And those are basically all three of the storylines of the movie. And wow, that's basically the storyline for the French Dispatch in a spoiler-free way and in a nutshell. Now, my thoughts on the French Dispatch. I was looking forward to seeing this movie when it was going to come out last year, but unfortunately they pushed it back because of COVID. And now I finally saw it in the theaters, and I gotta say, I was not disappointed by it. I really, really enjoyed it. I loved all the storylines in the movie, but I can't decide which one of the three stories are my favorite. It had some good visuals. The cinematography is great. The set designs look great, and all the acting was really well done. And it was very well cast. It was really well casted, and it does have some of the other actors who previously appeared in some of Wes Anderson's other movies, like Owen Wilson, Bill Murray, of course, and who else was in it? Edward Norton was in it, but I can't remember who he was in the movie. He was previously in Moonrise Kingdom, and it also had Tilda Swinton in it, who was in a few of Wes Anderson's other movies. And I really, really enjoyed it. I think this is definitely one of Wes Anderson's best movies, and is definitely one of my favorite movies that I've seen this year so far. And, well, now this is my opinion, but I think this might be Wes Anderson's best movie since Moonrise Kingdom. Well, that's just my opinion, at least. I loved this movie. I loved every minute of it. I loved the set designs, and it was just a damn good movie. And I do like Wes Anderson. I like his directing style and his style of directing. I think his directing style is pretty unique. And this one is definitely one of his best movies. If you're a big fan of Wes Anderson, some of his other movies, I would highly recommend checking it out. It's a really great movie. But I don't have much else to add to The French Dispatch other than I really, really enjoyed it. But if you haven't seen The French Dispatch, I highly recommend it. It's definitely one of Wes Anderson's best movies and one of his finest movies. And is so far one of my favorite movies that I've seen this year. But I'm going to give The French Dispatch an 8.7 out of 10. So that's The French Dispatch. And now onto the final movie for this review. The last movie for this review is a movie that I saw in theaters last Friday. And it's another movie I've been looking forward to since I saw the trailer for it, well, when it was announced back in May of this year. And that movie is Last Night in Soho. And this is the new Edgar Wright movie. And this is the same director of movies like Hot Fuzz, Shaun of the Dead, The World's End, Baby Driver, which was his previous movie he made before this one. And I just want to say, this is actually the third Edgar Wright movie that I've seen so far. The only other two Edgar Wright movies that I've seen are Baby Driver and Shaun of the Dead. And Last Night in Soho was released on October 29th, 2021. So this movie literally came out 2 weeks ago. And this is a completely different movie compared to his other movies. His other movies he directs are usually comedies or action comedies. But this one is completely different. It's a horror thriller. Well, it's more of a psychological thriller than it is a horror movie, but still, it does have its horror elements in it. And yeah, it's not like any of his other movies that he's directed. And this one's gotten some mixed reviews. This is one that some people like, some people didn't like. Well, I'll give my thoughts on that in a little bit. But before I give my thoughts on it, let's talk about the story of the movie, and then I will give my thoughts on it. So let's dive into Last Night in Soho, the last movie for this review. So Last Night in Soho follows a young fashion designer named Eloise, who is played by Thomasin McKenzie. And Eloise is a big fan of 1960s culture. She loves everything about the 60s, like the music, the fashion, and so on. So Eloise goes to London to go to university to become a fashion designer. And while she stays in London, she rents out an apartment building. Rents an apartment to stay in while she stays in London. And at night, she dreams of being in the 1960s, when she comes across an aspiring dancer and singer named Sandy, who is played by Anya Taylor-Joy. She thinks it's all a dream, but then the dreams start to get darker every night and some really messed up shit starts to happen. And she realizes that they may not be dreams. They might have been something that happened back in the 60s. And it becomes a mystery to solve. And there's some really messed up stuff that starts to happen throughout the movie. Well, I don't want to spoil it, but that's basically the storyline of the movie in a nutshell and in a spoiler-free way. Now for my thoughts on this movie. Now, this movie has been getting a lot of mixed reviews. Some people like it, some people didn't like it. But me, I personally really enjoyed it. I thought it had a pretty good storyline. All the performances were great. It had some really good set designs. I loved the use of color in this movie and the use of lighting. And it had some great music. And it was pretty creepy. It's not really a horror movie. It's more of a psychological thriller than it is a horror movie. But it does have its horror elements in it. And it's actually pretty creepy, kind of weird. Not in the David Lynch sense of weird. But it is a kind of a weird movie. I like the twist at the end. Well, I don't want to spoil it, but if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. And I also have to give it credit because this was actress Diana Rigg's last movie. She passed away in September last year and didn't live to see this movie get released. And you might know Diana Rigg from Game of Thrones. She played as Olenna Tyrell and was in one of the James Bond movies. She was in On Her Majesty's Secret Service. And she was the Bond girl in that movie as well. But may she rest in peace. But I really enjoyed it. I can sort of understand why some people don't like it. Maybe it's just they weren't big fans of it. But I really enjoyed it. And so far, out of the 3 Edgar Wright movies that I've seen so far, I think this one might be my favorite that I've seen so far. But I thought it was a pretty good thriller. I really enjoyed it. And I thought Edgar Wright and all the people involved did a great job in it. And it's so far another one of my favorite movies that I've seen this year so far. But I don't really have too much else to add. But if you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend checking it out. It's a great thriller. And I really enjoyed it. And so far, one of my favorite movies of this year, along with The French Dispatch and Titane, which Titane is so far my favorite movie that I've seen this year. But not much else for me to add. But I'm gonna give Last Night in Soho an 8 out of 10, and that's gonna be it for this review. Well, that wraps up another edition of Keagan's Movie Reviews. Thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys enjoyed it, feel free to leave a like, leave a comment below, and subscribe for more videos like this. And feel free to follow me on Instagram and Letterboxd. The link to those are in the description down below. And I'm sorry if my review for Dune seemed a little bit rushed. I couldn't really remember everything that happened in it. And I didn't really want to give away too many spoilers. But yeah, it is what it is. But what are your thoughts on these 3 movies? Let me know in the comment section below. And stay tuned for more videos. But anyways, until next time, this is Keagan Shepard signing off. Thanks for watching. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.